to Unapologetic and Free, our new series called
You Don't Know My Story.
I'm Lekia.
I'm Shar.
We're sisters by blood
and friends by choice.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to our new series, You Don't Know My Story. We are excited about this new series because it's an opportunity for people to share their story. So often we encounter people day to day, but from the outside looking in, right, we don't know what someone may have gone through. And so we created this show to give people an opportunity to share and encourage someone else to live another day, to encourage someone else that this is just a chapter in the book, but it doesn't have to be the final say.
Now, we hear the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. So a lot of times we meet people and they seem like, or they have everything together, but don't judge their story based upon the chapter that you walked in their life on.
Welcome, welcome, Tracee. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are excited to have you on the show. I am going to just go ahead and read your bio, and then right after the bio, go ahead and share your story.
All right.
So Tracee Wilkerson is a walk-by-faith mother of two, a 16-year-old and a 21-year-old, a wife, and fempreneur. I hope I said that right. I saw that and I was like, oh, I gotta ask her. I never heard that before. She started her entrepreneurship when she was 18 years old, buying her great uncle's local San Antonio liquor store while attending Palo Alto Community College, where she worked as a lifeguard at the college. She taught the city's youth swimming lessons during her years there. She then owned a dry cleaners, seamstress business, flipped houses, and even owned a garden supply company and restaurant. Currently, she is a Mary Kay independent sales director where she teaches self-care through skincare to clients and extends her entrepreneurship by teaching other women to walk by faith and start their own entrepreneurial journey. Thank you, Tracee.
Yes, thank you. Hey. I have a long history of fempreneurship.
Fempreneurship.
Yes. So, and I do walk by faith. My sign behind me, and maybe I'll unblock it so y'all can see. My office is just a little messy, but it says faith. So if y'all can see that, it might be a little bit backwards, but
no, but we see it.
I definitely do walk by faith. So when people meet me for the first time, they usually don't believe what I've done in my life, because I want to think I look young, but I definitely
you are beautiful.
Thank you, Shar. My son is 21. I did have him in my 20s, but you know, it's funny with when we're young women, we think we can conquer the world, but then we don't have it all together, right? So so going back, my mom and my dad met in the military. My dad was in the military, and we moved here when I was 4. So my mother's Korean and my dad is from Iowa. And so we moved here to San Antonio when I was 4 years old. So I was born overseas, but you know, that didn't last long. The stresses of, you know, living in a new country for my mom, all that. And like a lot of people, a lot of us are from broken homes, right? And my mother got custody of us and then decided when I was 12, my brother and I, we're about 10 months apart, she gave us up for custody to my father, which is a big, women don't understand it, right? We wouldn't get rid of our own children, but I guess my mom had other plans. But my dad took on, you know, that duty of raising us in those crazy years of being teenagers and preteens. And so I attribute my strength from my father. And trust me, I've learned a lot of things from my mom. And I think it was a lot of those lessons that what not to be. And I no disrespect to my mother, but you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of habits that we want to break and a lot of generational curses we want to break for sure because of bad habits that keep passing on. So I never really had the greatest relationship, with women. And so that kind of stuck in my head. So being a Mary Kay director kind of shocks a lot of people in my family. But I love people now, but I'll get to that. And I was really seeking, security. And my high school sweetheart, I ended up marrying and having both my children with him, and we did a lot of businesses together. And when you're young and motivated and driven, but very obedient, so I knew that I needed to be obedient to my husband, because that is what I was taught, right, through the Bible, through the Word. But, sometimes the other person isn't reciprocating of the word. So
that's true. Okay. Talk about it.
Okay. So he wasn't on the right path. And so when we're young and silly, we think we can correct men, or we can fix them and we can change them. Now, I learned from my experience through my walk is that you be the best person you can be, and hope to God they follow suit. But you are not responsible for their path or their journey. That's their personal relationship with God. So when my ex-husband decided he was going to do some shady things, and in about year 2004 or 5, he got in trouble with the law. And mind you, we had businesses here in San Antonio. We had flipped properties. We owned our house outright. We had bought a restaurant. The restaurant and the garden supply company were 2 in 1, because we would grow our own vegetables for our restaurant. We were kind of like those kind of good hippies, like reusing, repurposing. And I loved having businesses, but I knew that he wasn't walking by faith, or he wasn't doing those husbandly duties and just being right by us. Well, he was going to go to prison for 10 years. So that's how much he got in trouble, right? So we decided that we would sell our businesses so that I would have money, because I was going to have our second child. And it's a lot of stress. Well, I mean, I think I just had her. So I remember going to work, and this is how driven I am. I get a call on a Friday. Everybody called in because it's Friday, and the direct deposit just hit at midnight. And I'm going, this is a personal problem. It's mine too. I mean, obviously it was our business, but my daughter was 7 days old. Wow. And I had to show up and help at the restaurant. I mean, I tried the best I could to wait tables, but you know how it is. We got to, we're not all there. We're not all, right, healed. And she stayed in her little carrier, and I was, behind the register, and I worked the register at our restaurant when she was 7 days old. But when you own your own business, you do the and then some, right? Right. There's bigger and better for that. So, just to show a little history of like my dedication to my businesses and how much I do love my customers, and I love taking care of other people, and I don't like dropping the bag, right? Like leaving things undone and unfinished. But I felt he left things undone and unfinished because he was going to go to prison and leave me behind with 2 children. Well, he was going to end up going to federal prison. I believe that's out in Huntsville or Beaumont, that area. And we were planning on maybe selling our house and me moving there so I could be closer to him. I was really dedicated to my husband, right? And, but I think obviously he had other plans, because what he decided to do after that totally changed everything for the rest of my life, right? So he was on probation until he self-surrendered, and the self-surrender was supposed to be September 23rd of 2006. And a month before self-surrender, he was told by his probation officer he didn't have to show up every week, right? He could just show up the time he self-surrendered on the 23rd of September, and it was August 23rd. And he showed up at our house with a rental car, my brother-in-law in suit, which was, his brother, who was ex-Marines. And mind you, these men are over 6 feet tall and pretty hefty guys. And my brother-in-law decided he was going to walk in with my ex, now he's my ex-husband, and carry my 9-month-old baby out the door, which this man didn't even raise his own children. So I was like very baffled by him carrying my daughter out the door. And my ex-husband was very quiet. My husband at the time was very quiet, walks to the back room, and I just felt something wrong. Just something was not right. Well, come to find out, he had drained our bank accounts, and he was in the back room vacuum sealing our money.
Wow.
And I'm going, what is going on? And we had just sold our restaurant. Well, he didn't close the bank account, because that's always a question. He didn't close it. He just took enough out where it didn't require me to sign. Okay. And it was about $300,000 from the sale of our restaurant. So that was my life savings.
Wow.
And that's a lot of money when you're 28 years old, right?
Right.
I had worked for it. I knew every step that we took because of our serial entrepreneurship was going to lead up to, you know, a good retirement, a good lifestyle. And we left, and with that, I thought in my head, oh my gosh, my son is in the back. My brother-in-law is walking out with my baby. What is going on? I decide I'm going to go call my dad, and my brother-in-law comes back in, grabs the phone from me, throws it against the wall, and breaks it. I know some of it's very tragic, and I'm not gonna go into details of the severity of a lot of the abuse and craziness that was going on. But he basically told me that I wasn't going to call anybody. And do you not know, about 4 hours later, we were in Laredo, Texas.
Wow.
He was helping his brother, which was my ex-husband, abduct us. And all I could think of was, well, the whole time driving there, just leave me. Just leave me. Just give me enough money to take care of the kids and leave. Like, I have the house, I have the car. Well, no, I didn't have the car, because he ended up like taking the car and selling it, not knowing. And, you know, they showed up in that rental car. They had it planned. They had this all planned. And, you know, crying, I don't care now. Like, you get desperate. I don't care now. I don't want any of the money. You could just leave me and the children. You can have your own freedom. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. I am not going to a foreign country.
Good.
And, yeah. And, well, nope. They had a plan, right? So we crossed the border, and there I am, abducted with my 2 children in Mexico. And my daughter was being nursed. So I nursed my daughter, you know, she was 9 months old, so I was still nursing her. And my son was 6. So, I mean, he wasn't showing up to school, right? Like, this was, like, school was going to start, or it had just started or something. And fast forward, I was in Mexico for 7.5 years. We were missing for 7.5 years. I did not look like this. I'm going to tell you, the person I was very obedient to my ex-husband. I thought if I did everything right, it would make him a better person. Yeah. I think I enabled him in a lot of ways, because there was no lesson to be taught, right? I should have left a long time ago, but I know God always has a plan. And so the reason why it tugged at my heart to stay, even though I went through the things we went through, because we were hidden in Mexico, was that everything was going to lead to the next thing. And we never see it, right? We never see the staircase. We never see what's above.
Right.
But you have to believe, right? And so I know Lekia is going, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. You just have to believe that. I mean, one, you have to have faith, and you have to have hope. But, you know, there was a lot of desperation, and trust me, I lost a lot of the hope and a lot of the faith during that journey, because it was, you know, the abuse was there. I didn't have any identification. I didn't have any identity. All I was just a mother to 2 children who I'm trying to keep alive. Right. And still teaching them English, and still trying to teach them some sort of education, and still trying to feed them. And you know, when you're preoccupied with just feeding your babies, how you can't really do much of anything else, because you really just need to make sure you're sheltered and fed. And so it was like, wow, I cannot make a plan to get out of here. Like, there was everything. He was one step ahead of me. He had resources. He spoke Spanish. And mind you, I am not Spanish. I am not Hispanic. I'm not Mexican. But I learned real quick. You know, thank goodness I grew up in South Texas, and I knew something, you know, just a little bit. But you learn real quick when you're immersed, you know. And
right.
definitely learn, and you want to make sure you can eat. So I was like, again, I my hair used to be long all the way down to the bottom of my back. I used to be about 200 pounds, which I'm 5'2", so that's, saying something. I had really severe acne because of the stress. Now, I found out throughout the years, when we have really anxious, nervous energy and we don't trust that God has given us the ability to find our way out of things, because he just doesn't give it to you, right? Like he equips you with the tools, but we've got to be open, right? We have to be open to receive everything that he is. Yeah, and if you don't, and you're blocking it all, that's where anxiety comes into play. That's where nervous energy, and I used to pick my face just out of anxiousness. I used to bite my nails, and I don't do any of that anymore. Thank goodness. But there's some crazy stuff that's all in between that 7.5 years that we were missing. And I know the magic question, and I know you're probably how did we get out of there?
Yes, I'm like, I need to know.
Yeah, so how did we get out of there? So I'm telling you, there was all kinds of stuff in between, right? And I'm just going to tell you, so he was raised here in South Texas as well. He is on the U.S. Marshals Most Wanted list, top 10. And so he is wanted by the FBI and the U.S. Marshals. I won't say his name. I mean, everybody can look him up. You just look up my name, you can figure him out. But I mean, I'm not going to give him that kind of credit.
Right.
And it was all the things I thought would never happen to me. Now, women, we need to stop thinking that, like, this ain't going to happen to me. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm not saying be paranoid about everything.
Right.
Don't be paranoid about life. Be positive about life. But you know what? Be aware and use discernment. Because if we don't have discernment and we don't have awareness, then we're just a doormat. But, we don't want to be a doormat. But we need to be prepared for these things. So the freedom I feel now that I'm less paranoid, and you would think that I would be more paranoid because maybe I need to look over my back. You know what? I know God has me. God has me, so I don't need to be paranoid. If it's my time, it's my time. And I don't mean to make that sound cliche, but I'm going to enjoy every moment until that day. And I try to teach my children the same thing, but it is so hard because the imprint of what my ex-husband did to them and me, because I take blame, because I was depressed. And it was 7.5 years of sadness, and there was 7.5 years of desperation, and 7.5 years of not knowing what the next step was. But I had a come to Jesus moment when I almost lost my life, and God told me, and I did see the light, and I don't mean again to make it sound cliche. It was this bright white light, and I heard him tell me, you have to stay here to save him. Now the hair's just on the back of my neck, just raised up. But he said, you have to save him. Now I thought, my husband, I think that's your job. I don't need to take on that. And no, it wasn't. It was my son. Was my son. Whoops. But so my son was subjected to a lot of my ex-husband's bad habits, all kinds of things. He was also a drug user. So he taught him those things, and he taught him how to sell drugs at 12 years old, 13 years old. And these are all things I had to not fix, but get him back out of it. He didn't want to come back with me. And now think, when you are separated, your children are separated, and you want to leave a foreign country, you will not leave that country until you have both your children. Right. And so people ask, why were you there so long? I said, my husband's real slick and he's a narcissist. He knew that he could keep one of the kids from me to keep me from moving, from leaving, to, moving my body, right? Like I would make sure I'd be close enough that I could be able to get my kids. And he had that kind of control over me because I wasn't a step ahead of him. And I'm not saying it's a game of being ahead of people. This is not what life is about, right? We just need to learn discernment on how to take care of ourselves and know that we are capable of being independent but codependent with people. Not codependent, interdependent. Okay. Not codependent, interdependent, right? Because I was so codependent. I mean, people thought, wow, she's real sharp. She could do all this. But I was very emotionally codependent on my ex-husband. I couldn't go anywhere without him. You know, he didn't move. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't do anything emotionally. I couldn't do anything without him. Now, when we are strong enough to stand on our own 2 feet, we attract the people around us that are, you know, or that will benefit us, you know, interdependently, so we could work well together. And I learned that as well through all of this. And it's amazing what you learn when you get older and wiser, right? So,
Yeah.
and you know, I finally got my son back, but there was this time where he had gotten a woman pregnant, and again, never thought that would ever happen to me. I was with him since I was 17. I had been with only one man, right? And wasn't that kind of person, you know, and come to find out, he just wasn't that type of person to make it work. But that's his journey, not mine, not my responsibility. You know, I loved him for where he was at the time. And, you know, I feel like if you hold bitterness and regret in your heart, that you will go to the ends of time feeling that. And it's just such a wasted emotion that all we can do is feel stronger so we can help others, right? And trust me, I wanted to be bitter. There was a lot of bitter during the time, right? There was a lot of anguish, a lot of, I wanted to, you know, I don't want to kill someone, but kill a man. And I wouldn't do it, but it was, you know, and again, a lot of times people would ask me, well, why didn't you do something to him? Well, if I did something to him, my kids will always remember me for being the one that did something to him. Right?
Yeah.
And children see things, but they only know what the end result is.
That's right.
So if I had left them without a father, they would only remember me as the one that left them without a father. And I wasn't going to have that, right? They currently don't talk about him. Maybe occasionally, they just remember things, but they don't bring him up. And it's, you know, we talk about it openly if they want to, but I don't force them on it. And I don't want them to have any bitterness towards him. They just learned a lot of lessons, right? And it's unfortunate that he made those choices, and that we can only learn because of those choices that people have made around us and our own choices. So I'm grateful that they're not those kids that go around, I hate my dad, or or my mom. I don't want them to be that way. We just feel really bad that he made those choices to not want to be in our life, because I think we're great. And I think we're awesome. And I want to be around me, and I want to be around my kids, and my kids want to be around me, and, they love being around each other. So, and for my son, it was the hardest. And so, when my ex had gotten that woman pregnant, he had moved us to a different city to hide us. Now, he convinced everybody around in his circle, mind you, I had no friends, no phone, no communication, that I was the one keeping him, that I was the one with the money, whatever, it was his story, that I was the one keeping him. And so that was his way of, justifying why he kept having to take care of us, whatever, I was kept. Oh, that's so crazy. But, so he moved us up to a different town and basically kind of abandoned us. He set us up, though. I mean, there was a place for us to live. He would come every 20 days or so and bring us food. And I started getting smart about it because I had time to myself. I didn't have him and his energy, distracting me. And so I told him that the kids really like baked goods or calzones, something that they don't make in Mexico, right? And so so he'd get me extra flour and pepperoni and all kinds of stuff, and I would bake muffins and cupcakes and baked goods, American style stuff, and I would go door to door with my children, if I had both of them at the time, or even with just Ava. Ava remembers that, my little one. She's 16, but my little one, she remembers that fondly. And so we would go door to door selling baked goods. And mind you, there's no American prices on those baked goods. They're like 10 pesos, so that's about 50 cents a calzone. And so you really have to collect a lot, to have anything. And just even that would be like a little bit of extra so we could go get vegetables from the market. Or, my daughter wanted little chips or, a soda that we normally didn't have, Well, I went to the market and I met a Chinese American lady who was spoke English, and I thought, wow, I'm Asian. I'm mean, and her son was half, Caucasian, and oddly they look the same. My son and my daughter, my daughter and her son. Sorry. And I thought, wow, and they're about the same age, so they played and we made friends, and she told me that I could come bring my baked goods there to sell at her little stand. So I made a friend, which was good. I needed one so desperately. But you don't know who you can trust, especially in a foreign country when you don't have identification. And I was very concerned about being taken by immigration and separated from my children, because what they would do is give them to him, and then I would go to jail, right? So it was always a fear. So for me to understand immigrants in this country, I know it from a different perspective, but I got them. You know what I mean? Because that's a scary feeling. Such a scary feeling to be separated from your children. Such a scary feeling to think I can't even work without. I mean, I didn't care what I was going to do. I just needed money so I could help find a way out, And of course, with my entrepreneur mind, I'm making calzones, and but you can't make too much money either. You can't make too much money without red flagging everybody, because they'll start asking you where you're from, But, so me and this lady, we started a friendship. I'd see her weekly, I'd go to the market. And so I'd start using her internet, which was like, okay. So you remember Facebook when it was kind of older, before it had Messenger? Okay. So Facebook was a little different. I mean, still now, I think if you don't know anybody or have any friends, it's almost halfway impossible to friend people. So I tried to find my family, and they were like, how do you have an association with them? You're not in the same country. You don't have mutual friends. So it wouldn't let me friend people, right?
Wow. Okay.
It was a little different. It was different. And so then I was trying to find my family's phone numbers. Everybody changed their cell phones or whatever. So there's no way I can find people's numbers. Well, for what I had at the time, right? Like, when you're desperate and you're just trying to find my dad, and his phone number,
right.
And it wasn't listed. And so you start feeling desperate. Well, then I reached out to somebody that was in the town where my then husband was out with my son. So he was, like I said, he abandoned us. So he was at a different town, right? At a coastal town in Oaxaca. And I reached out to somebody down there, and I said, I started talking to him. And actually, when I messaged him, I said, hey, do you remember me? I'm Rigo's wife. Now, mind you, my ex-husband's name is, we'll just say it, Jason Weaver. That's his name. It is not Rodrigo Paxalto, and that's the name he went by. But you could buy a birth certificate in Mexico. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying for people to do that. I'm just, that's what happened. And he actually answered. So when you're not friends with somebody back in the day on Facebook, it went to the outbox. And the outbox, and nobody,
right?
And it still does, but it still gives you a better notification now, I think. But before, it was like hidden, right? Like, you would have to really go in there and get it to find the message. And he answered it in like 30 minutes. And I went, oh. And he goes, yeah, I vaguely remember you. I'm like, great. Really, this is my thought. I thought, wow, I've been missing for, at that time, 6 years. I've been missing for 6 years. No one's looking for me, and I'm vaguely remembered. Very sad feeling.
Right. Yeah.
No, because we take it for granted. Because maybe if you're a depressed mind person, you think no one's going to remember me if I go. Well, it is very sad to think that nobody remembers you. And then I lived it. Like, I lived it. I'm like, I know I made an impression on people. Like, how, I don't know. But I was a very shy person at the time. Amazingly, I talk now. I was very shy. And we started communicating, and we actually started,